Hi, and welcome to the first video. Figured I'd start with a question that I get asked quite often by a lot of people when they find out I lived abroad, and constantly from students, both in China and Japan when I was there. And that is, why did I decide to go abroad to teach? Well, I guess I should first start with when I went abroad. Well, that was September 4th of 2011 is when I decided to go to China. Or actually, when I arrived in China. But the decision to go was many years prior to that. And it's a multifaceted reasons. So I guess I'll start with the first one. Prior to going, I had worked a variety of different jobs after graduating college. And never felt really fulfilled in any of them. One of two that I held prior to going was HR. And I know a lot of people think, oh my god, HR, that's a great job, it's very glamorous, a lot of job security and whatnot. And you're right, there is a lot of job security in HR as long as you're not, total idiot. However, I had a very low level position. It was steady work, good benefits. I worked with a good group of people and did the job for about 5 years prior to leaving. However, I felt really unfulfilled at the job. It was, in many ways, very mechanical, very predictable, very stable position. And even with them giving me additional responsibilities and duties, never really felt like what I was doing was something that I felt passionate about or was really into. So that was one of the reasons. I just didn't feel I was getting, any kind of fulfillment from the work. At the same time, I was bartending on weekends the last 4 years of that job for just extra cash and do something a little fun and exciting and something that I always wanted to do. And I certainly saved a good amount of money. Certainly saw quite a bit of the bartending side of life and made a lot of friends through it. However, I just felt burned out. As you can imagine, working one job Monday through Friday, normal business hours, and then leaving on a Friday to go and bartend until midnight, 2, 3 in the morning, and then maybe doing a double on Saturday and a double on Sunday, and then starting the office job the next day kind of burned you out. But, looking back on it, it was pretty fun. But again, felt unfulfilled. So it was one of these things where I wanted to try something different. I wanted to see what things were like teaching and in a foreign country, and especially in a country that I had always wanted to visit, specifically China. Plus it would give me the ability to see other countries and other regions within that area. Another reason why I decided to go abroad was in the HR job. There was I think it was December of 2008, I had a really bad year-end review, which I will argue, but not in this video, was not my fault. But that's another story, like I said. So that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me with what I should do at work. Didn't feel that was right, didn't feel it was justified. And I remember telling my contact in China, what do I need to do to be there? I'm going to be there in 2 years. So he gave me some advice, told me, get your TEFL certificate. If you have a chance to do some tutoring or teaching of any kind to boost up your teaching resume, go ahead and do it. Well, I definitely got the TEFL. Didn't have time for much else. And started the application process. So another reason why I decided to teach abroad was I'm from Miami, born and raised. Felt like I didn't travel as much as I should have. I had been to Chicago, I had been to other parts of Florida, I've been on cruises, but I always wanted to just kind of see a different part of the world, and I felt that Miami, in many different ways, kind of is like a dead weight, just keeps you here, and the people that leave generally don't come back or don't want to come back because they're kind of tired of, kind of a faster paced life, high cost of living, bad traffic, and generally attitude by a lot of people, which nowadays is probably even worse. But that was another reason why I left. If I look down, it's just because I'm checking notes. Schooling. I graduated from Florida State in 2002, and about 2004 decided to come back, or I should say mid-2003 decided to come back. And not to get into too many details there, but once I started working again, started thinking about going back to school, because philosophy degree, unless you're a teacher and have a master's or a PhD, there's not a lot of work for you. So worked for a few years, paid off some debt, and tried to figure out what I wanted to do. Was going back to school part-time when I was working in other jobs for business, because I figured it would give me the flexibility to go from one industry to another. But at the same time, didn't feel fulfilled, didn't like the work, didn't care for business per se, felt it was just kind of a career with no animus, no soul. No offense, it's not for everybody, it certainly wasn't for me. And thought about getting my MBA. It's been suggested to me as a quick way to move up the corporate ladder. However, I had never done business at the bachelor's level, so I didn't feel that making the jump was a good idea. And at the time, an MBA would have cost me about $50,000 US, with no guarantee that it's gonna boost up my salary. And at the time, MBAs were becoming a dime a dozen. You had schools like Nova, University of Phoenix Online, and several others that were offering the program for varying degrees of money. So felt I would be spending a lot of money, dedicate all my weekends, go into bigger debt than I've ever been in, for something that would give me a slight step up, but not giant leap in my career. So decided it wasn't for me. Another reason I went abroad was I was in my 30s, and China was someplace I had always wanted to go to, and my ex-college roommate from FSU had been living there for many years. One of our mutual friends had gone there and taught there and convinced him to go, and he was enjoying it, and he had a good life. And several other people that I heard from and knew had gone to South Korea or other places and were enjoying the time there and had a good life and a good work-life balance, versus me, who working two jobs, try to make ends meet, still living at home. I didn't want to continue down that route forever. So when the bad year in review came, all these things kind of just came to a head, and I just realized I need to make this leap. I can't drag my feet any longer. And it was something I had thought about doing for many years, kept in contact with my friend out in China, and just always thought, well, what if I don't like it? What if I come back, hate it and have to come back, and I have to sign a year contract? And so I guess in many ways the bad review was a blessing in disguise. So for that I am grateful, because I'm glad I did go abroad. Also realized as I got older, time was short. I wasn't getting any younger. I didn't know how much time I had. And when I had traveled to other places and taken cruises, I did notice that there was a lot of older people in their 50s, 60s, and above traveling and seeing things, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I also realized that as you get older, you're gonna lose a little mobility. You're not gonna your interests are gonna change. You're not gonna want to party or do much of the things that you want and that you usually did in your youth when you were abroad. So I figured while I still had the youth and energy and interest, I probably should try this out. And worst case, I can always come back, and start anew. So all these things led me to decide, you know what, it's time to go abroad. And lastly, I figured I'd have an interesting time seeing what the dating scene was. I had dated quite a bit while I was in the US, and I met a few people who were really nice and really good people. Things didn't work out for a variety of reasons, not necessarily anybody's fault, but dating scene here is pretty rough, pretty competitive. Money plays a huge role in it, so if you're not making bank, your dates are going to be few and far between. There are a lot of gold diggers and opportunistic ladies who, if a man doesn't make a certain amount and have certain possessions, he's considered undateable, regardless of the content of his character, which is pretty sad. So I figured, let me try another place. And I always had an affinity for Asian women, so I figured if I go out there, maybe the dating is easier. And from what I heard, it was. So, to sum up, these are all the reasons why I decided to go abroad and teach.